body for volunteering in New South Wales. Grow communities and bring people together through volunteering.
Welcome to the Local Legends podcast, where we share stories of untold community spirit. Joining us today is Joy Rappo, who will be sharing her story as someone who has been supported and now provides support as a volunteer with the Compassionate Friends. Listeners are advised that today's episode will explicitly discuss grief and loss. Hello and welcome to the Local Legends podcast, Joy. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you start by telling us about who you are and what you do with the Compassionate Friends?
Okay, well, my name's Joy Rappo and I'm a volunteer with the Compassionate Friends. I've been a volunteer for many years in several roles, and we're a bereavement peer support group that supports families, its parents, siblings and grandparents after the death of a child of any age. And I'm a member and a volunteer after my son Anthony died suddenly 23 years ago now. So I've been volunteering for 20 years. I found the organisation through reading some grief booklets, trying to make sense of what I was living with. And fortunately, I found the support group and went to support meetings, and I think that's made a huge difference in my life in not only how to live with my grief, but also how to live a full and wonderful life, never forgetting my son.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story. What has your experience volunteering with the Compassionate Friends been like, especially given that they've supported you in the past?
My experience has been as a member and gaining support, going to support groups, going to workshops. I've been able to learn so much about living with grief. I have felt like connected. I felt like I've found a place that I'd more than survived for a lot of years. When I was surrounded, I guess, by people who most loving and supportive people who, with the very best intent, wanted to help us. And this couldn't be fixed, and how were we going to survive it? So my experience has been forever grateful and thankful that there's an organisation like Compassionate Friends. And I guess that's mostly why I volunteer, is because someone helped me, and I will always remember the first time I went to Compassionate Friends. I don't remember what the wonderful person who was there said, but I'll always remember how they made me feel. And it was a sense that I was going to be okay, because this person knew what it was like to live this pain, and it survived, and I had a sense that I was going to be okay. And I guess that's understanding and the kindness. I think kindness has been a huge part of what I've experienced, and unwavering support, and people who accept you for where you are. Grief is messy, it's hard. You have to work through it. It doesn't go away. So being supported in the way that I needed to navigate this is what I've received from Compassionate Friends. And I hope in some small way by volunteering that I'm able to give some of that back. When you're forever grateful, that's pretty much my experience.
And that's beautiful. Thank you so much. And I hear you say, the kindness and the understanding, having someone accept you for where you are. How do you feel that's influenced the way that you interact with the people through Compassionate Friends? Has that given you some skills or given you an understanding to help them as well?
Yes, I've learned who really knows about grief in a way until you actually live it, and the sense of, I think there's so much aloneness in it because it's such a unique journey for each of us, how differently we grieve. And for me, I've learned so much about what grief is, how do we live with it, what I can do. I didn't choose to be a bereaved parent, but we're thrown things in life that we can make choices about how we live with it and what we do with that. And my volunteering is to actually hopefully give something back to what I've received. And it's also a really important part of remembering my son Anthony. I call my volunteering my Anthony time. I'm always his mum, and I give time to my other children. I have two other wonderful children, and I share that time in giving, and I receive so much back as well. And being in a place where there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong with your grieving, being supported to be able to work for myself and with my family how we would survive this and live again. I hope I can do some of that for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me a bit more about, what supporting people through compassionate friends, what you're doing on a day-to-day. What does that look like for you?
Well, that can vary. Life takes us to places that we never anticipated, and to work with and meet the most amazing and inspiring people. I volunteer in the office, so some of the work is office work. I wasn't very experienced at that, but I can tell you I've become quite skilled up. Lots of things to learn. I think with computers, technology, I've learned so much. I'm still not all that good at it, but it's a work in progress. Often it's whatever needs doing. So, it's making cups of tea, it's bringing morning tea in. I also take phone calls, so we have support telephone line, so I'm able to help with that support line. I also am one of the support leaders of a support group. I've been on committees previously, so I've been able to be part of a team and contribute to lots of events and ways that we can continue to help bereaved families. We have remembrance walks, we have a candle lighting, we have workshops, we have guest speakers, because it's really important for bereaved people to learn about grief and have a better understanding of what it is, and also to have social connections and places where you feel cared for and nurtured, and therapy for your grief. So I've done things like pottery workshops, and it's amazing what a group of people can make out of one little handful of clay. Drumming, music therapy, meditation, so many things that have grown my life, and it enhances your joy of life when you're able to do all these things. So I'm just one of a big team of people who all work together to give service, I think, to compassionate friends.
And it sounds like it's given you an opportunity to explore so many different skills and be involved in so many projects. Has that, if you hadn't been volunteering with the Compassionate Friends, would you have ever thought to, do office work or, to be on phone calls, to do pottery workshops?
No, it's grown my life in those ways. I've always been keen to try maybe things, but it's very hard when you're newly bereaved and your life is turned upside down. Someone talked about when their child died that they'd lost their compass and they didn't know how to navigate the world. And I actually I find that pretty much what it was like. And trying to, it takes a lot of courage to actually step up and go somewhere new where you don't know people, or to open up about what your life is when you're grieving. So I'm forever grateful for so many things that I've learned, and I continue to learn. And as a volunteer, I might say I went to the volunteering conference this year, and I thought, oh my goodness, this
Yes.
is fantastic. You start with hearing Lee Sales, and you go to the end of the day and you have Christine Anu and her daughter singing and everyone in between. And I came away feeling like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. So I've been exposed to things in my life and learned so much that, yeah, it's amazing. I'm in a place that I never believed possible.
That's fantastic. And I'm so happy to hear. And speaking to something you mentioned earlier about the kind of aloneness that can come with this journey, do you feel that you now are a part of a community and you have that connection?
Yes, but not in an isolated way. For me, what's been really helpful is that so often when you're newly bereaved, you've got wonderful support around, but you don't feel part of it. And you don't want to be the person who cries or spoils people's fun or happiness, because Anthony's always a part of our family, but he's missing. So often you can have sorrow and joy together. And maybe that's something that a lot of people, I didn't understand it before. So you become quite conscious of not wanting to be, and I think, I could say like the party pooper with lots of things. So that aloneness is often that you don't want to spoil things for other people because you're happy for them, but you don't feel part of it. And over the years of feeling supported and being involved with the Compassionate Friends, it helps you understand more and to actually re-engage at a level that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do. So I'm able to share so much more. And also, it's really important to be able to talk about grief. Importantly, to remember my son, that he lived. He's so much more than just his death. And for people not to worry about upsetting me, or they'll never upset me by mentioning him. They'll give me joy by mentioning his name. So it's been a real learning curve, I think, for all of us. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I answered your question.
Nothing to apologize for. I am loving listening to you, and I really appreciate the vulnerability and also the kindness and care that you're sharing with us. I think it's very heartwarming to know that. I think it will be very affirming to people who've been in your shoes. And I think it's very heartwarming to know that, as you say, joy and sorrow can be together, that, it's not always hard, and that, I think that's a beautiful insight. So thank you. In terms of,
Sorry. I think you were asking about, what do I do? And when I go into volunteer. So it's all the different things you do. And of course, it's really sad because you are meeting people who are living what you live. So sadly, but it's not a sad place to be. It's a place where people come with a commitment to offer back what the organisation, it's about giving service to the organisation to help other people in a way that is not necessarily our personal beliefs, but what's helpful. And we're a mix of so many different people that we would never have met under different circumstances. And it's that sense of being together and enjoying so much what you're doing. So there's lots of fun times as well. So someone said, oh, it must be a really sad place. But I go back and say, well, it would be really sad if there wasn't a place like Compassionate Friends for us to be.
and is that one of the reasons why you volunteer, if the idea of Compassionate Friends not being there?
Yes, I know how much it has helped me and continues to help me learning and, being able to then pass that on and to sit with and be with someone who's newly bereaved. Yeah, so the alternative is not to have someone there. I don't like to think about it.
Yeah, and fair enough. So in your, connecting with these people and supporting them through the phones, what are some of the stories or feedback that stand out to you that, tell you you're doing the right thing? This is what, you're making the difference that you want to be making.
Well, for people to say just a simple thank you for listening. And some people express it very differently. And it's that someone, when I was very new at telephone supporting, you can be a little bit anxious about, am I doing this? Am I being helpful? And I remember this one mum was crying and she said, this is the first time I have actually been heard. And it was really profound for me that I get that. I know what that's like. And it's just giving the time. And it's not just the phones. I think we do a lot of what we do as an organisation, not me personally, but we send to all our members anniversary cards, we call them. So we send a card to all our members on the anniversary of the death of their children. And some people think that's really sad, but for us, it's so important to remember our children. And birthdays and anniversaries are very significant times, as are all, family events. And we receive letters and thank yous, beautiful thank yous from people who just write to say thank you so much for remembering my child. And just recently we had a beautiful card that said thank you so much. And it was like 13 years since their child had died. And it was a significant year for their child's birthday. No family had remembered, no flowers. And compassionate friends had sent a card. And it meant the world to them. So I think in small ways you don't realise just what you can do. For a moment, you can do something special for someone.
Absolutely. And it sounds like a beautiful, way to your point of listening and making people feel heard and feel seen. Is that why remembering is important? Like, what is the
remembering? Yeah, if someone listens, you actually can share and remember as well. Remembering our children is so important. Our children, my son Anthony was my firstborn. He's the reason I'm a mum. So forgetting him, you can't do that. I keep him in my heart. He's in my heart always. And I want him remembered. I want him to remembered as this beautiful boy for all he was for the 18 years that he lived. So remembering is so important. We don't have new memories, but we have all the wonderful, for however time, it may be a blink, whatever we've got, those memories are so important to us. And listening is something that allows people to talk and share how they're feeling and actually to remember their children. I think I said earlier, sometimes people feel very uncomfortable with our pain, and it's a hard place to be. But to sit and to actually be silent. Silence is also another place that people can be very uncomfortable. I know personally how important that is, to just sit and be. And to not give advice, but to be there. And I think that's where that peer support is so important.
Definitely. And when it comes to listening, as you say, I think a lot of people do they want to give advice. They want to say, give a pat on the back, or, they might even say phrases like that should never be uttered, probably, like, there's a reason for this. This will make you stronger. What are your thoughts on those kinds of possibly well-intentioned, but maybe unhelpful?
They are all done with love and the best intent. Sadly, they're incredibly hurtful because they don't help. They don't help, and it's someone saying that you're lucky because you have another son, and with absolute, not diminishing the death of Anthony, but I thought, wow, that hurts. I'm not lucky. How can I be lucky? I'm grateful for so much. And yes, so I've learned a lot about those. And the shoulding, it's actually just, it's okay to be so long as you're safe, to grieve your way and to maybe ask the grieving person what is it that they would like, instead of, saying like, you'll get over it, or you shouldn't cry. So to ask what they would like, because I think often we have a sense of what we need, but we're often not asked. So we do have quite a lot of information that we provide to family and friends of bereaved people when they contact us as well, to help them, with what do you do. And I know that's been incredibly helpful for me, and sometimes we have it's called a do's and don'ts. It's been updated, of course, but it's helpful. And sometimes just sharing those moments can actually lighten the load that we feel with our grief as well. And to learn and really be inspired by how a lot of other parents, siblings, and grandparents, work through a lot of those really painful times, and how do we come through that.
Absolutely. And do you feel that you're helping those friends and family, with the trained people who understand, coming from the Compassionate Friends? Does it feel like, or how does it feel, I should say, to know that you're making a difference, not just to people who are bereaved, but to their friends and family who, as you say, might be well-intentioned, but might not be equipped or even emotionally capable or at capacity to give that support?
I hope I'm getting better at it. I think that sometimes you spend a lot of time working at helping people to feel comfortable around you, and that's exhausting, particularly in those early times. When I look back, of course, I think about all the things I've learnt now that I could have done, but being able to, share that, and the people do talk a little bit more about death now. There's often a fear and awkwardness, when people are so rawly, in pain and grieving. And that's just what it is, Grief's messy, it's chaotic, and it's hard, and it's exhausting. And just having someone there makes such a huge difference. Asking what you might like. People do wonderful things. They often feel uncomfortable to say. And people so much want to fix this, and it's not fixable. So that's what it is. And it's okay to acknowledge that. And I think that's often helpful. Well, it was helpful for me because I knew in my head that this wasn't fixable, and how was I going to survive? And it was sitting and listening to other parents talking about how they'd survived. That's what made the difference.
Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful insights, and I can only imagine how it would feel to know that you're, as you were saying, giving service, and you're giving back to these company who have helped you, and I'm sure helping so many people who have been in your shoes. I can hear the care and the understanding, the way that you talk about this. So I can imagine that the people reaching out to you would feel so supported and affirmed. You've talked before about when we were first calling, something that stuck with me that you said was that people give platitudes for people finding meaning in their loved one's death, but it's really about finding meaning in life again. What helps, what have you learned through your volunteering that helps people get to that point?
There's no meaning in our children's death. And it's almost soul destroying to even think about how can you find meaning in it. It is what it is. It's happened. We can't change it. So what choices have we got now about what we do with our lives? And it's finding meaning in your life. It's about what's your purpose. You often feel that as a parent that you've failed. We all feel very different things. We all believe we can save and protect our children, and the reality is that we can't. So finding meaning in your life, what is that? How do you find that? And you've got to seek that out. It doesn't come to you. it's got to sit with you. It's not what someone else does or tells you what you need to do. Importantly, I think it's so important. We're a peer organisation, so we're complementary to counselling, and I think that's really important to identify that we're not here to fix it, but being with someone who's actually had that lived experience and that they get it. There's a sense of you're in a safe place without judgment and without giving advice, but being there to acknowledge what you're living with. That's life affirming for me.
That's fantastic. I love that you say life affirming. I love that you're feeling that way. And it sounds like you've been helped. You're helping people who've been in your situation. You're helping their friends and family, helping the community be more comfortable with those silences, feeling listened to. What would you say to someone who wants to volunteer in a role like yours or with the Compassionate Friends? What would you say to them?
What would I say to them? I was thinking about it. First of all, think about what if a group like Compassionate Friends was not here? I think that's probably enough to say, well, what can I do? I think I've been incredibly fortunate. I have a wonderful, loving, supportive family who are really, I think, also appreciative, but that we're able to help in some small way. I don't often feel like it's helping. I've been helped, so yes, but I feel like it's giving back more than you get so much more. You receive something that brightens your life. I think there's so much to get out of life by being part of a group of people who are volunteering. And I'm just one person. It's all not isn't about me. It's one person helping as part of a group of people who are, really committed to giving back. I guess it's that sort of stepping up, and it's hard. It's not easy because you're stepping outside your comfort zone, thinking, how can I help, or what can I do? And it grows in a most amazing way that you end up doing things that you never expected. I mean, I helped with bookkeeping for a while. Someone said, oh, could you come and help do this? And you asked for office work. Well, I took myself off and did a bookkeeping course. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I met these people. I thought, wow. So you're engaging with the world and living. And we all do it from different places, but I travel into the city on the train when I go into the office, and I go on the train and I make sure I do the city circle and I go past Circular Quay, and I'll look out there, and I do it every time I'm on the train, and I look out this beautiful harbour in this city and I think, wow, I live here and I'm going to enjoy my day. And it's my Anthony time and it's my family time. It's for my whole family that I do this. And I think one small thing, if only once, I've helped someone or they've had a sense that they're okay because they're in a safe, supportive place, that's all you can do.
Wow. I'm so happy to see just the way that you seem to light up when you talk about volunteering. It is so wonderful to see and hopefully experience for yourself. And thank you so much for such an open discussion today with sharing your story and so many amazing insights into how we can all be supportive and listen a little bit more. I could listen to you speak all day, but I won't keep you. So I'll just say for anyone interested in getting involved in volunteering, they can check out the Compassionate Friends New South Wales.org.au or contact the Centre for Volunteering for advice, services and more. Thank you, Joy. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say?
No, thank you. Thank you, and particularly to the Centre for Volunteering, for being out there and encouraging people to volunteer, because as a community, we can't survive without volunteers. collectively we make a world of difference. And we've got so much to gain from it.
That's high praise coming from you, Joy. Thank you so much. And take care. And thank you again so much for joining us today. If you have been affected by any of the topics raised in this episode, please seek support with the Compassionate Friends New South Wales at 1800 671 621 or Lifeline Australia at 13 11 14. Take care.
You've been listening to Voices of Volunteering, presented by the Centre for Volunteering. For resources, tools, training and news, head over to our website volunteering.com.au.